Welcome, it's Ted here from emodels.co.uk and welcome to the final part of the Trumpeter Pz.Kpfw.IV medium tank build. Let's go and get it finished and see you soon. Bye now. Okay then, let's have a look at doing some weathering on the tank. We've gone on and put the winter whitewash on, as you've seen, and from that we've chipped it and then give it a coat of a satin varnish. Hopefully the satin varnish is going to let the next stage, particularly doing the washes, that's going to let the washes flow and protect the work we've already done. Now the one I'm going to use to do the washes, I'm going to use some Pz.Kpfw.IV Starship filth. Now it's not quite black and it's not quite brown, but it's a mixture of the two. Now I think against the white background, I think this is going to work quite well. I have seen and heard people who will sort of talk about putting a dark blue wash on the tank to give it a colder look. Yeah, it could work, but I think that these colours work quite well with this tank, with this colour scheme of the white. From the washes, we'll go on then and we'll talk about, we'll look at putting some winter streaking grime on. That's to just give a little more variation and change of colour to the white. And then after that we'll look at doing some chipping of the paint around the corners and such, and along the edges, and for that we'll use the MIG red primer base. Now whether or not this is the right colour for a tank of this date during the war, whether it was a brighter red primer, whether it was even green. I've heard people talk about it being green, but I think this colour works quite well. It's a dark brown. I think it'll work quite well with the washes. It'll contrast with the white as well, and we will, as well as this, we'll go on and we'll give it some rust washes and streaks from that as well, so that'll probably be about the final stage. Now we'll look at doing all this on the turret, because I think to get the tank in shot and keep the hull in shot all the time is going to be a bit of a struggle because it's so big. But the same thing applies to the tank, to the turret, as it does to the hull, which is sat over in the corner. Right, mixing these up. You can go out and buy some washes. This is a Humbrol one. You can buy them already mixed. And I'm sure that a lot of you will already know how to make your own washes, which is what I'm going to do here really, as well as the Pz.Kpfw.IV. Some of you will be using the Winsor & Newton oil colours, the raw umber and the burnt sienna, and mixing them all up, mix and match to your own paint, mix to your own desire. And I'm using the bottom of some takeaway tubs, because I do have a smaller one of these which I've recently just gone out and bought. I've got an aluminium one with just little circles, little indentations all around it, but for the sake of me I can't find it. Whether I've left it in the shop, but I did go out and buy one. But I thought I'll get on with this anyway and show you it. These little takeaway tubs work quite well because they're disposable. They've got a little raised bottom in them, which you can put your oil paint on, and then there's a sort of round the edge leaves a little bit of a moat where you can put your odourless thinners. We'll use odourless thinners to make this, and you can just mix it at your will, just by touching it in the corner, really making it a thin wash. Remember, when you're making a wash, you want coloured thinners rather than thinned colours. Okay, and that is about it. Right, let's have a look at this and we'll see how it goes on. Now it should, we'll find an edge, it should flow. We need to keep some cotton buds ready just to hand. And now it's just then a matter of working around. There it's flowing along that line there. See how it runs away? Okay. And it'll pick out, I don't know if you can pick it out on the camera, but it's picking out the sort of welded texture of that panel. You can really let it dry a bit longer before you dab it off. I just think I'd put a little bit excess on there and just wanted to take that off before it dried too much. Now this is going to work kind of quite well with the streaking grime that we're going to do, because it gives an impression of it being in the grubbiness, and as the rain has washed down all the muck and dirt into the recesses. And you'll see when we get the streaking grime on how it all ties together. I'm just getting it around these edges here. Now the oil paints, being oils, they're going to take a day or so to dry, but that is a benefit in itself because it does allow you to get in and work and clean them up if you need to. I've put it on this little turntable here, which does make it a little bit easier rather than having to pick it up all the time just to work on it. It's from my spray booth. It's just a matter of going round and picking out all the details. Now because this tank is so big, it's going to take you quite a while to do. Just do it a section at a time, then you won't forget where you've been. Fires along there, and it really does make the details pop out. Let's try and bring it a little bit back in a shot. Let's try and move you in a little bit. There we go. And we can just touch around these bolt heads and the rivets. There we go. As you see, it just flows around, and keeping it, just fetch this back in, just keeping mixing, just take some oil off, mix it in with the thinners, and then just touch. You see it's gone on a little bit too heavy, so we just get our cotton bud in and just touch it off again. Then we can go back. Then once it's dried, because it doesn't dry completely if you know what I mean, you can just go back in with a thinned brush, with a brush with thinners on, and just clean up. Now another way to make these things flow, because it doesn't seem as though it's quite flowing at the moment, is just to take in another pot, just to take some thinners on a brush, and find my towel. Just take some thinners on a brush, take the thinners off, and then just give a light brush of the thinners across the surface, and as well as the varnish, it should help the paint to flow, the oil to wash the paint. Now remember we're not trying, unlike the filters, we're not changing the colour, but we're allowing the wash to pick out the detail. Let's turn it round, bring it back, turn it round. And what it's doing here, it's actually picking up some of the lines within the chipping area itself. So we'll just dab those off. Okay, we haven't finished along here yet. Let's just give it a little wash with some thinners. Now, as you know, when I say less is more, because this doesn't need to be too heavy. I know we are trying to bring the detail out, but it doesn't need to be too heavy because because there's lots of it. The eye will pick it all up. The eye will sort of, I'm sure there's a reasonable scientific explanation that how the eye picks up lots of little details and puts them all into one as such. Probably just talking rubbish, but you can do lots of little things which on their own don't look to be anything, but when they're all together you'll see it, if you know what I mean. Or am I just rambling? Never mind. Right, let's have a look at a nice big area. Let's have a look at the cupola. This is going to be a nice area up here to do some chipping later on. Lots of wear and tear from the commander. Remember, there's a machine gun to go on here yet. So there's still little bits to add. But as you can see, it's going to take quite some time to get all the tiny detail done. Yeah, there's all of it. So I'll carry on with this. You're going to have a brew, and it'll be a couple of days time till I get back and the oil is dried, but for you it will just be in a few moments. So see you in a moment. Okay, welcome back. Right, as you can see, where's the pointy stick? We've put some of the pin washes on and it's picked out lots of details over here on the rivet heads and bolt heads and around some of the joint lines. The details all been picked out. So what we're going to do now is move on to the next stage, is to apply some of the winter streaking grime. This is produced both by MIG and AK. I think one or two other companies do it as well, and I found it really useful. It does go on well. It goes on very easily too, which is always a bonus. And what do we need to apply it? Well, we need a couple of brushes, a fine brush, and a wash brush, maybe even a broader one, and some odourless thinners, which I've already got prepared, just in one of the little dishes that I've got. And what this is going to do, it's going to give the effect of rain and snow, etc., moisture that's been running down the side of the tank, and has accumulated all the grime and gunge. And as you see on your own car, perhaps in the winter when it's been raining and all the grime is running down. Right, let's get on and show you how it's done. Give the bottle a good shake. It is an enamel colour, and it's a greyish type brown, which, as I said, when I did the pin washes before, I give it a black pin wash, which is normally a little bit too stark for pin washes, but in this case I think it's going to tie it together well with the winter streaking grime. Right, let's have a go. Let's try not to do a Tony Fairclough and spill it all over the bench. Just take a little bit on the brush, and then what we want to do is we'll start here, is just apply on the vertical surfaces just varying lines of varying thicknesses and lengths, and just apply where the moisture, the rain and such would run down. Now if you look here, where's my pointy stick? Oh, we'll go for the bigger pointy stick. If you look here on the hinges and the bolt heads, this is where the moisture is going to accumulate and run off. So rather than, we'll do some runs from the top, but also do some runs from there as well, from the edges of the clips or the hinges, run them down, and from the bolts themselves. And this does give quite an interesting effect to the streaking grime. Now then, as this is such a large model, I think it's best to do just a small section at a time. See how we haven't reloaded the brush yet? Just do a small section at a time. Let that dry, let it go off for 10 minutes or so, and then we'll go on to the next stitch. Alright, so that's all we need to do. Then go away and make a cup of tea. And that was a quick, short scene. Give it 5 minutes to dry. I'll go and put the kettle on. See you in a minute. Oh, right, here we are. Just long enough to make a cup of tea or a light refreshment. And we're back to it. Nothing's moved. I haven't done anything else to it. What we're going to do now is use a brush, some odourless thinners which I have prepared, tissue, and we're going to work the streaking grime. So we just moisten the brush, make sure it's moist, not overloaded, and then take it off on the brush, and then using that just lightly in a downward motion just fade the lines in, not taking them all off. You can just see, hopefully you can just see the brush is just fading them, just blending them in, but still leaving sort of that runny type, grimy type effect. There we go. As I say, we need to work this just a little bit at a time, because we don't want it to dry too much. It is enamel, so you will have a fairly decent time to work it. Just fading it down, and see here, can you see in here, pointy stick time, can you see in here, how it's leaving a sort of a grimy running effect, and it also sort of grimes the paintwork down a little bit as you brush it down with the thinners. As I say, remember that the little sort of protrusions or anything where the rain would gather and run around, that's going to create its own little droplet effect as well underneath it. And that is it. Now then, remember that it's not just going to be the outside of the tank that's going to have this effect. It's also going to be working in here, just on the vertical surfaces, anywhere where the rain would run. This isn't going to work on the top of the tank. It's not going to work on the horizontal surfaces because it wouldn't run, it wouldn't affect, but that's what your washes are for, to tone down that bit, and it will tie it all in together. Let's do the next bit then. So we've tied that in. We can, if you think you haven't done enough, you can go back, and as with the enamel thinners, if you put too much on, you can take it off. So it's really a very simple, very effective way of adding another dimension to the tank and another stage of the weathering. Now once this is done, we can either, as we did before, give it another coat of varnish to protect what we've done so far, protecting each stage. But from here we'll now go on and do some chipping. We'll do some chipping after this. There's a couple of ways to do it. The sponge chipping. Wobbling the camera, knocking the camera with my brush, sorry about that. Hopefully you can see the effect that we're trying to do. Some of these lines are getting a bit the same-ish, so we'll just put some smaller ones between them. And there, and then we will do the same. What I'd try to do here on the inside, on the turret bin, I would try to pick out each of those rivets and do an effect in there, and then coming from underneath, probably need to lift the turret up, is do some under here as well, because the rain would run under there, along there, and it would track all the way down. Seems a shame to forget to do the inside, even though you might not necessarily see it. It's always nice to know it's done and it's all, the effect is complete. Right, that's the next stage done, as we're working our way around the shirts and armour on the turret top. Varying thicknesses, varying lengths. Once again, a couple of rivets here. We'll do that. Initially, when you take it off, when you're taking it off with the thinners, you're thinking, oh yeah, maybe I'm taking a bit too much off. But when it's all on, and you look back at it a little bit, let's put a bit more back on there because I did take a little bit much off. When you look back at it again, yeah, you think, oh yeah, hang on, it is there, yeah, it is different. And that's all there is to it. It's not difficult. It's not the black magic. You wonder how did he do that? It's as simple and as easy as that. Okay, I'll go and blend these in again. I'll have a cup of finish my cup of tea, blend these next lot in, and then we'll carry on right round the tank, and I'll come back when I've done that and we'll look at some chipping. Alright, so that's winter streaking grime. Winter Streaking Grime, AK-014. Get it from E-Models. See you in a moment. Right, welcome back. We're going to go on to the next stage in the weathering, and we're going to do a little bit of chipping. Unlike the chipping that we did before when we chipped the white camouflage coat, I can't think what I'm going to say now. When we chipped the camouflage coat, we used the chipping medium, but that was one way of doing it. But in this way we're going to look at doing some post chipping, and there's a couple of ways we could do this. One is using a very fine brush, and another one is to use some sponge. Now there's various, I'll just move this out of the way so I can get the sponge in shot. There's various sponges available. There's packing sponges, household sponges. This is a bathroom sponge. You want something that's relatively coarse, that you can pull to bits, make some little weathering sponges with it, and then do like I've done. I've got a pair of these self-grip tweezers, just a little ball of sponge in the top, and the chipping can be done with that. It's really quite simple to do. I actually, on this tank, I've been doing it again with the MIG Ammo red primer. It's the base coat, but it worked quite well on here, and I do go over it very slightly with some gunmetal or a silvery type paint, just to break the colour up. Now you don't need a lot of this. It's going to be so small you're not really going to see it. It's not going to be obvious, but it is going to be there. That just gives it the second little coat. Now I know people will say that the chipping coats on these the primer coats on these tanks won't chip. Well, they do on this one, because I think it looks quite good. It's quite effective. It's only a model, it's not the real thing. Well, it's a representation of the real thing, but it does work, and it just gives that extra element, that extra visual element to the chipping. Right, how do we do it? We're going to have a look at doing the sponge chipping first. Screwing the lid on before I spray paint all over the workshop. Just give it a quick shake, get the paint mixed, and then put some down on a piece of paper like this, or on your colour palette, and then using the sponge. Done. We're only going to need a bit of this, so load your sponge up, and then, very much like the dry brushing, is just take it all off and have a go on your piece of paper, just to see that you're getting the right effect. Now don't press it, because you'll get big splodges, and try and rotate the sponge as you're using it, because otherwise it becomes quite symmetrical. Surprising it is. If you keep putting it in the same spot, you can't see this because of my hand, it does become quite symmetrical. So load your sponge up, take it all off, have a practice where it goes, and see, can you see this? See those ever so tiny paint specks, and that is what we're going to use. Right, I'll move this out of the way because it's affecting the white balance. We'll bring our tank back in as close as we can get so you can see it, and now just touch. Just touch it around the edges, not a lot. Take your time. You're going to need patience to do this. You're going to need patience because, especially on this scale, there's a lot of it. Try to make it random, Don't try to make it symmetrical. What's the word? Asymmetrical, maybe? And just little bits. Now this paint, it looks quite lumpy when it goes on. But as you saw, if you've been watching all the videos, you'll have seen that when we chipped the inside of the tank, it looks quite good as the paint dries, because it dries really flat. What we're looking to do, as you know, is do the areas of wear and tear. I'll try to keep it close and in focus for you. Bits of where sort of weapons and machinery and ammunition will have been sort of used around the tank, causing scratches. Metal on metal will cause scratches to the paintwork. It'll cause some dints around here at the commander's cupola. Now then, we're getting a little bit big splodges there, so it's time to load up again. And this is one way of doing the chipping. Right, let's have a look at the other way. Very same, just the same. Take a very fine brush. I've got a Kolinsky sable brush here, a Kolinsky brush. Just load your brush up with the paint, and then once again take off the excess. And then what we're going to do is, with patience and lots of time, is just go across and give it lots and lots of tiny dots. Now then, because there's so much to do, it'll drive you balmy, but in the end, your time and your patience will all be worth it. Just do 10, 15, 20 minutes at a time, however much you're comfortable, and then leave it. Because if you start getting fed up and you start getting bored, the paint chips will become bigger, you'll start and drag the paintbrush along, and the effect will be spoiled. Now we could really work on this part here, because there's a lot of wear and tear that will have gone on around this area. So now I could put the fast forward button on and let you watch this as I speed it up, but it's still going to be an epic scene of watching me paint, and it will go on forever. So the only best way I can do this is, once again, say I'll see you in a moment, and we can come back and have another look at it when it's all done, and then we can get on to another bit. Okay, welcome back. This is probably the bit you've all been waiting for. We're going to do some mud. As you can see, the workbench is covered in paper, because this is quite a messy process. Involves blowing mud around the bench, and it gets everywhere. Don't ask me how I know that, but I've spent the last hour cleaning it all up. Protect your area, because it can get messy, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to use a few products that some are ready made and some we'll make up. We're going to use some of the MIG products, splashes from MIG, damp earth, wet ground. There's a few of them. For this we're actually going to use, for the later on we're going to use the heavy earth, heavy mud. Prior to that, we're going to use some of the colours from the Mud Eastern Front, once again from MIG, and we're also going to mix those with a few pigments. There is a pigment included in this pack, and there's also a couple of extra pigments just to adjust the variations in the colours. Excuse me. Now then, mud. We need to put it on in a couple of layers. Firstly, there's going to be a lightened layer. Not too much on this, because I think if we're going to depict this in the spring with the weathered whitewash, the rest of it should be in keeping. And I'm thinking that perhaps in the spring there's been all the snow and ice around, it's beginning to thaw, and the ground is going to become muddy and sticky again. So it's going to throw up a lot of wet mud around any vehicle that's going through it. So we'll put the first coat on, which will be just a touch. We'll work in the lighter colours to the darker colours. So the first colours to go on will be, let's just find it. We'll have some fresh mud from the set. We'll use some of the dark earth pigments, and we'll also just lighten the colours up a little bit using some MIG pigments, concrete and sand. This is going to give a little bit of a lighter effect to the fresh mud, so it'll just where the mud itself has dried. Right, little mixing cup. Let's just move the camera down so you can see what's going on. A little mixing cup. Now into that we're going to put some just powder, plaster. I'll have to find a suitable implement to put it in with. All this is just plaster of Paris, any cheapo filler from the DIY store, just to give some bulk to the colour, to the pigments, because you could in effect build the whole colour complete with the pigments, but that would just take a lot of it and work out quite expensive, I would think. So the plaster just adds a bulk to it. Now to that we'll add some fresh mud. This is a runny enamel based product. Put that in there. And now just to lighten it up a little bit, because we'll need just as I say, a touch of contrast between the old mud and the new mud. Put some dark earth in. It would be better if you wore some gloves, because it can get messy. Right from the start it gets messy. And then a touch of concrete just to lighten it. Not really putting too much in there. This will be mixed to your own taste, really, just like a chemistry process, just mixing up until you find something that you're happy with. A touch of sand, once again it'll lighten it all up, and then we apply into there some enamel thinners. Now you can make this as thick or as runny as you want. If it goes on thick, you can stipple it on, and it will sort of be a heavier mud type texture, or you can thin it right down and it will become more of a splash type effect. So that's it made, just like that. Now then, the next stage, let's get on and apply it. What we need for this is a brush and an airbrush. Simple process. Now then, saying it's simple, just before I started this segment of the video, my compressor started to play up, and it doesn't seem to be wanting to hold its pressure anymore, but we'll see how it goes from there. So all we need to do is take some paper. It'll probably blow my white balance out at the moment. Put some of your mix on here and then just have a practice of blowing it off. Now you see, if you go right into it, it will give you this effect of sort of more or less like an airbrush. If you come away, it will spray it across. You've got to find the right balance between the two. Now this first coat is going to take more of the area, most of the area than it will be as we go along. So what we're trying to do now is go along the tops of here where the mud would have splashed up and is now beginning to dry. So we'll have a go and we can spray it on. Don't worry too much because we can work this. Just take the excess off. See how my airbrush has now lost its pressure. I think it's the pressure valve is either sticking Now we can work this. See this go? You can't even see it going on. Let's move the camera back up and in so we can see how it goes on. There, that should be better. What you're trying to do is also as well try and put the mud on from underneath. Spray it as though the mud itself was spraying up. Now because you've added a plaster and the pigments to this, it will give sort of more of a texture to it than just a paint look. Anywhere that you've gone over, just dabble it out. It's a little bit thick, but you can also go over it again when it's dried with some enamel thinners and play around with it. Because it's enamels, in this case we've added the thinners to it, you can play around with it for quite some time until you're happy. Try and get it right up into the corners. I know that you won't actually see underneath the track guards. You could, if you wanted, give it a coat of thick mud where it all accumulates and just hangs. Now then, it looks quite dark at the moment, but because we've added the lighter pigments to it and the plaster itself, it should dry a lighter colour. Now you see what I'm trying to do here is just at the top of the wheel arch, track guards, is just to give it that different colour, because down here we'll be applying the wet darker mud. So this takes a few hours to dry, or till we can get the next stage on to the next stage. So we'll do that, let it dry, and we'll come back and have a look at it again in a moment. See you in a moment. Okay, right, it's been a couple of hours now since that first coat of mud weathering has dried, and you'll see it's, or I don't know, hopefully you can see, it has dried off to a much lighter grey, brown than it was when we put it on. I think here's the original colour in there. Putting the pot to it, next to it you can see how it's lightened up, and that'll give us the variation in tone from the dried light mud at the top to the darker wet mud that we're gonna put on now. And this is what we're going to use. We're going to use her MIG heavy mud. It's, I think, basically the same as what we've just made with the pigments and such, but it's a much denser, really thicker product. And the way to apply this, it's really easy, is using a sponge, which I've taken from the bathroom, and just applying it in a dabbing motion like this, like we'll show you. It's easy just to take straight from the pot. It's one thing that even Tony Fairclough can't spill because it's a solid. It's almost solid. Mind you, he could spill solids, but never mind. Sorry, Tony. Anyway, here we go. It's just a matter of taking your time and applying it on. Sorry about that, flat battery. Anyway, it's all charged up as we're just getting to the end of putting this mud on, just with a paintbrush, just as I say, just to touch up in the areas where you can't quite get to in the sponge. And it takes probably overnight to dry, and it dries to like a rubbery type texture, so you tend to think it isn't dry when in fact it is. Now you can continue with this as much as you want. As I say, you can build up in the corners where mud would collect, or you can leave it like this, as I'm going to do, where it's gone through a wet sort of ground, muddy puddle type thing, and consistent with the spring. While the battery's been charging, I've gone on and done some of the wheels as well, and you can still move this around the following day. Just using some enamel thinners, just to sort of get it to how you want it, but it really is that easy. As I say, you can make your own through the pigments and the glues, white PVA and some dirt for the garden and things like that, but this seems to be a lot less mess, just a simple bottle of mud, and it goes on well and does give the great effect. Now for the side armour, these bits that will go on here, what I've done with them, as you see, is I've given them a coat of the dried mud, and then for the other side, I've already done it on the other side. I've gone across and given it some splashes of the wet mud, just to give that sort of dragged, splashed up sort of texture. You can play about with this, do it as much or a little as you want, and it does give some really good effects. Right, I'm going to go and let this dry. I've got the rear of the tank to do. Let's move this down. I've got the rear to do in there. As you've seen, this exhaust muffler and things like that. Some mud on the back mud guards has gone on as well, and just time to put some mud on there now. Right, I'll go and get this done, and we'll see you for the next stage, which will probably be going to do the tracks. See you in a moment. Right then, here we go. This is probably the last piece of the build. It's weathering the tracks. We've done the weathering on the tracks, and now we're going to put the mud on them. That way it'll match up with the rest of the tank, as though it's gone through the muddy, wet ground on the eastern front. All we need for this, it's a bit long and arduous because I've already done one track, this one. I don't know if you can see on the camera that we've applied the mud to it. We're just letting that dry for the moment, but it does take a long time to do, and the best way to do it is to get an old brush. Make sure it's an old brush because that happens to it. It doesn't last very long. But it'll do the job that we want, and your heavy mud. And I would suggest some rubber gloves, because if you want to do it, you can do it this way, is just do it at a segment of the time, trying to get the mud in between the links and just dabbing it in, and not really filling everything, certainly not the first time round, not if you don't want to do that. I'm not intending to do that. It's just put it in, and as you get further along the track will bend over your fingers, so we can get some of this. What we're trying to do is get it inside the links, but keep it clear of the part of the track that comes in contact with the road, because that would get worn off almost as soon as it hits hard ground again, or even a bit of a drier area, because the abrasion would rub the mud off. We're needing to get it in, so then just use your finger or a rag just to wipe it off again. Now then, you've seen throughout this that you could have stopped at any time. If you didn't want to put the mud on, just use the rusty tracks as I'd shown you how to do earlier, and get the edges of the track done as well, and get it in. Now, as I say, you can always come back. This stuff's quite good because once it's dry you can come back and build it up. See how it's really thick, gooey stuff. Oh, sorry, knocking the camera with my brush. Also, what we're doing as well is we're putting a layer of this mud on, so that whichever way around or whichever position your tracks finish up in on the model, it'll have some colouring of mud on it, and then we can take a final step once we've connected the track together and got the right sort of track sag. We can apply a little bit more mud just to finish it off and get the detail and get that effect in, rather than having a blank part of track and starting all over. You could do this on the model completely if you wanted, because let's just bring the model back in. Excuse me, I'll wobble the camera a moment. Let's zoom it back out so we can see a little bit more of it. There we go. You can see we've put the hubcaps on, trying to get some light in because it's a little bit dark under there now because of all the dark brown and such. Let's try and lift it up a little bit so you can see in. See how the mud, we've given that a mud effect, and just in the top there it's more dried off. So it's been through a bit of a muddy puddle. Put the hubcaps on, put the wheels on. The wheels are all fixed in place now. They do turn, but this isn't a model for playing with, I don't think. So with there's some are stiff and some do turn quite easily. Another point is that when you're doing the drive sprockets, try not to get any of this mud on the sprockets themselves, because as you know, throughout this kit the tolerances are quite tight in some places, and when you come to put the tracks on, if the teeth on the drive wheels are covered in this gunk, it won't quite engage with the track. So we've cleaned them all them up. Let's have a look at the back. Put a little bit more, few more layers of mud on here. Just trying to adjust the lighting so you can see it. Pulling off the bench. I put a little. The mud's gone on a little bit thicker here, and I've tried to sort of pile it up a little bit, as though a bit more mud's caught on the back of all the shelf type structures on the back, and that's what I've done there. But that's about it. So I'll go on and do the rest of this track, wait for them to dry, and then put them all back together, put everything together, and come back, and I think it'll be about time then for a bit of a roundup. Right, we're getting towards the end. This will be the last video, so see you in a moment. Okay, here we are, ready to go again. I reviewed the last scene and noted that because of the darkness of the mud and such, it wasn't giving a very good replay on the video. So I brought some extra light in. The only thing is my hand might go into it now and again, so apologies in advance for that. We've done the mud on the tracks. Just a point of note is, because of the texture of the mud, it tends to take the freedom out of the link in the tracks, but it's not a big problem. And also as well, the fit on the drive sprocket at the front here might be a little bit more tighter than the sprockets on the links themselves. So it's really just a matter now of putting the track back on. It's just a simple thing to do. Just leave it in, and then maybe just like the guys did in the real world, is feed it round the drive sprocket and pull it across. There we go, get it in there. Now it'll seat onto the drive sprocket. It may need, just as I said, because of the texture of the mud, it may just need a little bit of a feed just to sit in the drive teeth a little bit better. Fetch the back one round, and then finally a track pin to go in there. Oh, we will get this, I promise. Try not to force it, it will go through, otherwise you'll break the track pin and you'll have to take it out again. Now all it needs doing from here is just to adjust the track tension so you get a nice little sag on it. Doesn't pull too far forward in the front, and then adjusting the return idler wheel is just to get enough so it takes the tension up on there, and you could glue that in at the end. If you wanted it free running, yeah, it will free run. The tracks and the drive will go around, and it'll feed through like that. Right, all we need to do now is put these extra panels on, the side armour, find the right way around. That's the wrong side. Let's turn it round, have a look on the other side. And I've just knocked the mud guard off at the back, but never mind. There's a few little final touches to do to this, and then we can call it done. So here's a side armour. You can, no, that's the wrong one, right from the start. You can leave some of this off you can put it all on. It's entirely up to you. I find the best way to do this is first the front, then the back, then the two next bits. We'll get this right in a minute. It's like a bit of a jigsaw. Then the back. That's it. If we put it on the right way around, then one and then 2 and 3, and finally the middle section goes on there, covering all those. Right, I'll go and get the other bit done. We'll come back and we'll have a bit of a roundup. Okay, see you in a moment. Well, and finally, as they say, here it is. Tracks are on, side armour's on, everything apart from a few little touch-ups and niggles and little bits that you find as you sit looking at it, it's all done. A final roundup. Well, this has been a fantastic kit. It's took me about 12 months to build it. I reckon that probably without the filming and editing and everything else that's involved and what have you, I could have built it in probably half that time. But it's been a thoroughly enjoyable build. 1/16 scale, it's huge. The base of it is the size of an A4 sheet of paper. Bags of detail in it. Some of the detail I think could have been reduced because you ain't ever going to see it again if you once it's all covered up. Remember, we had the all the gearbox and everything in the front here, and then there's excuse me, all the engine and transmission and everything in the back. The engine and generators and radiators all in the back, in there. You can still open those covers, but you can't really see anything under the radiators. There's lots of potential for those of you who want to add all the extra detail, and at this moment in time, as I make the video, I see there is a page on Facebook dedicated to the 1/16 Trumpeter tank build, where people are coming up with all sorts of different add-ons. There's loads of information on the internet and in books on the Panzer IV and all its variants, so there's loads of information out there to build it how you want it. I built it so that you could stop at any stage of the painting and weathering and enjoy it as it is, as you built it, or you could take it to the final stages and add the mud and such as we've done here. Some of the downsides of it, not really that many, just a few niggles. One of them is the hidden detail. There's lots of stuff that you've done in there that you're never ever going to see again, but you know it's there. It's the fun of doing it. Some of the tolerances are really quite tight. Often if you pre-prime, if you prime your parts on the sprues or anything like that, you'll find that when you take them off the sprues, if it's a tight fit, they won't go together because of the covering of paint. The drawings, the instruction manual, let's find it, here it is, a little bit confusing at times because some of the pictures are the right way up and then some of the pictures are upside down, and at times you've really got to have a look at the drawings just to make sure you are getting things put in the right way up. Yeah, I fell foul of that a couple of times, and there's one or two things at the moment that I think that's on upside down now. I'll have to go and correct it. But really that's it, finished. Oh, and you've also got to work out, there's no painting instructions in the instructions either, other than telling you just occasionally what colour something is. Some of the finer details, such as the guns, the machine guns and things, it doesn't give you any colours, it just says metal black. But you can look these up on the internet, find out what colours they are, then please yourself how you do them. But you've got to work out a paint plan, because this isn't one of your usual 135 kits where you can put it all together, then give everything a coat of paint. You've got to think about it. I did it where I left all the tools off, all the tools in here. I left them all off, painted them separately, painted the tank, and then applied them. If you want to go across, if you want to put them on, paint them and then put them on, then go across them in camouflage, do that. It's your model, it's your tank. Don't let anybody say to do it this way, to do it that way. You do it as you want and how you're going to enjoy it. But that's really it. It's been a fantastic kit. Would I do it again? I don't usually like doing models twice because I like the experience of finding out everything new. I would do it again. Probably do it the same time around, maybe do it in a different colour scheme, different ways around. But I don't usually like building models twice. But it is a good enough model to build again. Yep, no problem with it. But that's about it. I'd like to thank you all for watching, for your support and your comments as we've gone through this build. It's been a bit of an epic, an enjoyable epic. Thanks for that. Thanks for all your feedback. Thanks to the guys at eModels for allowing me to do this build for you. And hopefully they'll want me to do another build so you can carry on watching, and we'll see what we're going to do next. The final decision on that as we finish this video hasn't quite been made yet, but we've got something planned. Thanks to Fox and Tony, who are my co-builders on here on eModels, for their support, suggestions. We've all had a laugh, and it's been a great time doing this. But what we'll do now is go back and look back through the archives at some of the pictures as it all went together, and we'll look forward to you joining us for the next build from emodels.co.uk. Go along, have a look at the website, keep in touch with us on Facebook, and also my Facebook page, which is Skipper Scale Models. And I'll leave you with some photographs, but thank you very much, and bye now.